The room is dark, the candle flickers, and in the shadows of a Florentine study, a man dips his quill into ink darker than betrayal itself. His name is Niccolo Machiavelli, and what he writes tonight will echo through 5 centuries of power, blood, and empire. You think you understand manipulation? You think you see the strings being pulled? You're wrong. Most people live their entire lives as puppets, never once looking up to see the hands that move them. What you're about to learn exists in a realm most never enter. It's the architecture of control, the engineering of consent, the invisible hand that shapes nations while you sleep. These aren't tricks, these aren't games. These are the 6 hidden manipulations that built empires, toppled kings, and forged the very world you inhabit today. And they're being used on you right now. History doesn't remember the honest, it remembers the strategic. When Cesare Borgia seized the Romagna, he didn't do it with speeches about justice. He did it with calculated violence, strategic mercy, and perfect timing. When Napoleon crowned himself emperor, he didn't ask permission. He orchestrated a symphony of manipulation so masterful that the entire nation believed it was their idea. This is the game behind the game, the war beneath the war. And here's the threshold. Most people will watch this and forget it by morning. They'll return to their comfortable illusions, believing that power is about being good, being fair, being liked. But you, if you're ready to see what others refuse to acknowledge, type "I rise" in the comments below. That phrase is your key. It means you're not content being a piece on the board. You want to understand the board itself. Machiavelli understood something that terrifies most people. Morality is often the mask that power wears. Not because power is inherently evil, but because those who refuse to understand its true nature become its victims. The manipulation you don't see is the most dangerous manipulation of all. And there are 6 of them, 6 invisible architectures of control that have been used by everyone from Renaissance princes to modern corporations, from ancient Chinese strategists to contemporary political operators. You're about to enter a different world. Not the world they show you on the surface, where everything is fair and merit wins, but the real world. The one where perception matters more than truth, where timing beats strength, where silence can be more powerful than any speech. The world where those who understand these 6 manipulations don't just survive, they rule. So prepare yourself. What follows isn't comfortable. It will shatter illusions you've held your entire life. But on the other side of that shattering, clarity, power, freedom from being manipulated by those who already know what you're about to learn. The candle still flickers in that Florentine study, and Machiavelli is waiting. Florence, 1513. A broken man sits in exile, watching everything he built turn to ash. Niccolo Machiavelli has lost his position, his influence, his very safety. The Medici family has returned, and with them a wave of arrests and executions. Machiavelli himself has been tortured, 6 drops of the strappado, where they hoist you by bound arms and let you fall, dislocating shoulders, extracting screams. Yet in this moment of absolute defeat, he begins writing the most dangerous book in Western history. But here's what they don't teach you. Machiavelli wasn't inventing these principles. He was revealing them. He looked back through history, to Rome, to Greece, to the Italian city-states, and he recognized a pattern, a code.
The successful rulers, the ones who actually held power and protected their people, they all played by different rules than the ones they preached in public. Ibn Khaldun, writing in 14th century Tunisia, saw the same pattern. He watched empires rise from the desert, grow soft in their palaces, and collapse into dust. He identified the hidden cycles of power, how asabiyyah, social cohesion born of hardship, creates dynasties, and how luxury and comfort destroy them. The manipulation here: every empire tells its people they're different, that they'll last forever. They never do. But those who understand the cycle can position themselves to rise from the ashes. Sun Tzu in ancient China, Chanakya in India, Talleyrand in revolutionary France. They all understood power has its own physics, its own geometry. And that geometry is hidden from the masses for a very specific reason. Because if everyone understood these 6 manipulations, they would cease to work. The game depends on most people not knowing the game exists. Consider Napoleon for a moment. A minor Corsican noble becomes Emperor of France and nearly master of Europe. How? Not through military genius alone, though he had that, but through manipulation so sophisticated that historians still debate whether his soldiers loved him or feared him. The answer? Both, simultaneously, through design. He engineered loyalty by making each soldier believe they could become a marshal. He manipulated his enemies by moving so fast they couldn't coordinate. He controlled his own image relentlessly, understanding that the legend of Napoleon was more powerful than the man. And here you are, centuries later, believing your life is different, that you're not subject to these same forces, that the people in power now have somehow evolved beyond these ancient manipulations. That's precisely what they want you to believe, because the first rule of being manipulated is not knowing you're being manipulated. The game hasn't changed, only the players have new faces. The 6 manipulations Machiavelli identified aren't historical curiosities. They're the operating system of power itself, and they're running right now in your workplace, in your government, in every social interaction you navigate. Shall we begin?
Control the question, and you control the answer. Master the frame, and you master the game. The greatest manipulation ever devised isn't forcing people to do what you want. That creates resistance, rebellion, resentment. No, the supreme manipulation is making people believe they chose it themselves. This is the invisible architecture that shapes your entire reality, and you've never noticed it. Machiavelli observed it in the Roman Senate. They would present the people with 2 options, both leading to the same outcome. Do you want to invade Carthage now or in 6 months? The real question, whether to invade at all, never entered the frame. The people debated passionately, feeling empowered by their civic participation, never realizing the decision had already been made. In modern times, this manipulation has reached an art form. Your political systems offer you candidates pre-selected by power structures you don't see. Your media presents debates on topics they've chosen, within boundaries they've set. You're given red or blue, left or right, as if the spectrum of human possibility could be contained in 2 options. And you feel free because you get to choose between them. But look deeper. Who decided these were the only choices? Who framed the question? Who set the terms of the debate? Consider Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew, the father of modern propaganda, though he preferred the term public relations. In the 1920s, he was hired to make women smoke cigarettes. The taboo was strong. So did he argue against the taboo? No, he reframed it. He hired women to march in the Easter Parade smoking torches of freedom. He didn't sell cigarettes. He sold liberation, independence, equality. The women chose to smoke. They felt empowered by the choice.
The manipulation was invisible. This is being done to you daily. Your employer offers you flexibility, work from home or the office, while the real question of whether you should sacrifice 50 hours a week for their profit never surfaces. Your streaming services give you infinite content options while controlling what appears in your feed, what's suggested, what stays invisible. You scroll and click, feeling autonomous, never seeing the algorithm's hand. Saladin understood this when he unified the Muslim world against the Crusaders. He didn't force allegiance, he framed the question: will you defend our holy sites or abandon them? Who could argue against that? The choice became obvious. His true goal, consolidating personal power, remained hidden behind the sacred banner. The manipulation works because it satisfies your psychological need for autonomy while delivering predetermined outcomes. You must choose something, that's human nature. So they give you choices, carefully curated choices, choices that all lead where they wanted you to go. Now look at your life, your career path, your consumer preferences, your political beliefs. How many of them emerged from questions someone else framed? How many choices did you make within boundaries someone else drew? The prison of curated options is the most comfortable prison of all. You decorate your cell and call it freedom. Who's framing your questions today?
Law 2. What they don't show you is more powerful than what they do. The invisible blade cuts deepest. You're focused on what you can see. That's your first mistake. While you watch the right hand, the left hand moves unseen. While you track the visible pieces on the board, the real game unfolds in spaces you're not even looking at. This is the manipulation of strategic absence, the weaponization of what isn't there. Machiavelli wrote about this with chilling precision. A prince must sometimes be absent from the public eye, he noted, because familiarity breeds contempt. But more than that, absence creates mystery, and mystery creates power. When you're always visible, always available, always known, you become predictable. Predictable is weak. But when you withdraw strategically, people's minds fill the void with their own projections, usually elevating you far beyond reality. Look at how the Rothschild banking family built their empire. They didn't advertise their wealth, they didn't flaunt their influence. They operated through absence, quiet meetings, private letters, networks invisible to public scrutiny. While everyone watched the visible banks and knew their names, the Rothschilds built an information network that spanned Europe, moving faster than any government. Their absence from public spectacle made them phantoms, and phantoms are much harder to fight than flesh and blood. Napoleon knew this too. Before crucial battles, he would sometimes disappear from his general's sight for hours, even days. His officers would panic, scramble, wonder. Then he would reappear with a plan so perfect it seemed divinely inspired. The absence heightened the impact of his presence. It made him seem more than human. But here's where this manipulation truly bites. You're not just a victim of others using strategic absence. You're a victim of systematic absence in information itself. What stories don't make the news? What history isn't taught? What scientific studies never get published? What corporate decisions happen behind closed doors? The most dangerous censorship isn't the obvious kind where they burn books and ban speech. It's the subtle kind where certain information simply never enters the frame. You don't even know what you don't know. You can't ask questions about things you're not aware exist. This is the manipulation of the information environment itself, not filling it with lies, but carefully managing what truths remain absent. Social media platforms perfected this. They don't tell you what they're hiding from you. The algorithm simply doesn't show it. You scroll through your feed believing you're seeing everything, when in fact you're seeing a curated selection designed to keep you engaged, not informed. Lots absent posts, the buried articles, the shadow banned accounts.
They shape your reality through their non-presence. Think about it. How do you fight an enemy you can't see? How do you question information you don't know exist? How do you escape a cage when the bars are invisible? Strategic absence is the manipulation that makes you think you have the full picture when you're only seeing the frame. What are they not showing you today?
Law 3. The best way to control resistance is to lead it yourself. Give them rebels who serve your purpose. This is the manipulation that destroys movements before they begin. You think you're fighting the power? They gave you the battle. You think you're in rebellion? They wrote the script. The most sophisticated control system doesn't suppress opposition. It manufactures it, channels it, and ultimately harvests it for its own purposes. Machiavelli understood this intimately. He advised princes to have spies not just among their enemies, but to create false opposition groups themselves. Let the dissatisfied gather under a banner you control. They'll feel empowered, they'll feel they're fighting back, but they'll never threaten your real power because you're directing their rage toward targets you've selected. Metternich, the architect of European politics after Napoleon, perfected this. His secret police didn't just infiltrate revolutionary groups, they often founded them. They'd create radical organizations, let them attract genuine revolutionaries, then guide them into actions that would justify crackdowns. The revolutionaries thought they were fighting the system. They never realized they were serving it. In ancient Rome, the Senate had a brilliant mechanism for this. When the people grew restless, when revolution seemed possible, they would appoint a tribune of the plebs, a representative of the common people, who could veto Senate decisions. The people felt heard, they felt represented. The tribune would make passionate speeches against the patricians. But here's the key. The tribune was selected from the system, bound by the system, and ultimately served to release pressure without changing the fundamental power structure. You see this everywhere today. Why do you think your government allows certain protests but crushes others? They're not inconsistent, they're strategic. The protests they allow are the ones that make people feel heard while accomplishing nothing structural. March in the approved area with your approved permit during approved hours, and you can chant whatever you want. It's pressure release, it's controlled opposition. Your political systems work the same way. Two parties locked in eternal combat, both funded by the same corporate interests. They give you theater, passionate debates, different rhetoric, tribal identities. You pick a side and fight their battles for them. Meanwhile, the policies that actually matter to the power structure, both parties support them. Your opposition is permitted because it's controlled. Even in your workplace, the anonymous feedback system, the open door policy, the employee advocacy groups. They exist to identify discontent early, to channel complaints into approved processes, and to create the illusion that workers have power. Real power would be a union they didn't control. Real power would be walking out. But they've given you the appearance of voice to prevent you from seeking the reality of power. The manipulation is exquisite. People need to feel they can resist, they can fight back. So you give them that feeling. You give them controlled avenues of resistance. They pour their energy into battles that can't threaten you, exhausting themselves on fronts you've chosen, celebrating small victories you've allowed. Who's leading your rebellion? And where does the path they've set actually lead? Law 4. Information is the invisible currency of power. He who controls what is known controls everything. In the Palazzo of the Medici, there was a room few ever entered. Not the grand hall where they received ambassadors, not the chapel with its stunning frescoes, but a small chamber, barely decorated, where letters arrived at all hours from every corner of Europe. Banking was the Medici's public business, but information,
That was their private empire. They knew who owed whom, who was sleeping with whom, which kingdoms teetered on bankruptcy, which nobles plotted treason. And with that knowledge, they shaped the Renaissance itself. Machiavelli wrote extensively about spies, but he understood something deeper. The manipulation isn't just gathering secrets, it's controlling their flow, deciding what gets revealed, when, and to whom. A secret told at the right moment can topple a king. The same secret told too early is worthless, too late, and it's merely gossip. Timing transforms information into a weapon. Consider the Rothschild network again, but look closer at their true innovation. In the 1800s, they established a private courier system faster than any government's. When Napoleon fought at Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild in London knew the outcome a full day before the British government did. He didn't just profit from this knowledge, though he made a fortune. He demonstrated something more valuable. He possessed information architecture superior to empires. That demonstration itself became power. Sun Tzu devoted entire chapters to this. All warfare is based on deception, he wrote, but deception requires controlling information asymmetry. You must know your enemy while ensuring he doesn't know you. The manipulation isn't lying. Amateurs lie. Masters control the entire information environment. They feed their enemies true information that leads to false conclusions. They create noise to hide signal. They let opponents discover secrets that are actually disinformation. This manipulation has reached absolute perfection in your era. Your phone tracks your location. Your searches reveal your desires. Your purchases map your psychology. Your social media displays your relationships, your politics, your vulnerabilities. You're not the customer of these platforms. You're the product. The information extracted from you is sold to those who wish to manipulate you, and you pay for the privilege with your attention and data. But here's the deeper layer. They've convinced you this is normal, inevitable, the price of convenience. You've traded your information sovereignty for free email and endless entertainment. The manipulation isn't forcing you to give up your secrets. It's making you volunteer them enthusiastically while feeling you're getting a good deal. Intelligence agencies, corporations, political operatives, they don't need to torture anyone for information anymore. You publish it yourself. You check in at locations. You photograph your life. You discuss your plans in private messages on platforms that read every word. The panopticon isn't watching you. You're building it for them, one post at a time. Who knows your secrets, and what are they doing with them while you sleep?
Law 5. Build systems that outlive you. Personal power dies with the man. Institutional power echoes through centuries. Augustus Caesar understood what his adopted father Julius never grasped. Julius seized power through brilliance and force and was murdered for it. Augustus did something far more sophisticated. He didn't declare himself dictator. He carefully, methodically built a system where all roads led to him, but the system appeared to remain the Republic. The Senate still met. Elections still occurred. Yet every mechanism of power flowed through Augustus. When he died, the system continued. The Principate lasted 300 years. This is the manipulation most people never see, because they're focused on individuals. They watch the personality, the leader, the visible face of power. Meanwhile, the true architects are building something that transcends any single person. They're creating structures, institutions, processes that will continue executing their will long after their dust. The Catholic Church perfected this beyond perhaps any institution in history. Individual popes come and go, some brilliant, some corrupt, some barely competent. It doesn't matter. The structure persists. The hierarchy perpetuates itself. The doctrine evolves glacially through mechanisms designed to resist rapid change.
2,000 years later, the institution endures, having outlived every empire that existed when it began. That's not accident. That's architecture. Machiavelli wrote about this in often overlooked passages. A wise prince doesn't just accumulate power. He embeds it in laws, customs, institutions that will survive his death. Because here's the truth. You're going to die. Your charisma will fade. Your strength will wane. But a well-designed system, that can be immortal. Look at how the British Empire transitioned from direct colonial control to the Commonwealth to modern financial and cultural influence. The flag came down, but the systems remained. The language, the legal structures, the banking networks, the educational models. They lost the empire but retained much of the power by encoding it in institutions that transcended direct political control. This manipulation works on every scale. In corporations, the founder eventually exits, but if they've built the right culture, processes, and incentive structures, their vision continues. Terrible founders who built great systems outlive brilliant founders who built personality cults. The system is the thing. And here's how this manipulates you. You're not fighting people, you're navigating systems designed by people long dead. The laws that constrain you were written by legislators you never elected. The economic structures that limit your choices were architected by bankers and industrialists from previous centuries. The educational system that shaped your mind was designed for purposes that no longer exist. You're living in a world built by ghosts, and their hands still move you. The manipulation is making you believe these systems are natural, inevitable, unchangeable. They're not. They were designed by people for specific purposes, and they can be redesigned, but only if you see them as systems rather than as reality itself. What invisible architecture is shaping your life right now?
Law 6. Your allies and your enemies are not permanent categories. They're positions on a board that changes with every move. Talleyrand sits across from Metternich at the Congress of Vienna, 1814. France has just been defeated. Napoleon is in exile. These men should be enemies. Talleyrand represented France, Metternich the Austrian Empire that helped crush it. Instead, they're allies, carefully reconstructing Europe to ensure balance of power that will prevent any single nation from dominating. 20 years later, those alliances will have shifted again. Talleyrand understood. Loyalty to abstractions is foolishness. Loyalty to your interests, pursued through ever-shifting partnerships, that's strategy. This manipulation destroys idealists and elevates pragmatists. You're taught that alliances should be based on shared values, on friendship, on loyalty. The truth? Strategic alliances are based on aligned interests in a specific moment. When interests diverge, so must the alliance. Those who can't accept this get betrayed and call it treachery. Those who understand it were never truly betrayed because they never had false expectations. Machiavelli was brutal on this point. Keep your allies close, your enemies closer. But understand that today's ally may be tomorrow's enemy and vice versa. The manipulation isn't in the betrayal. It's in convincing people that loyalty should be permanent when circumstances are fluid. They weaponize your honor against you. You'll keep a deal that no longer serves you because you gave your word. Your opponent, meanwhile, has already moved to the next board. Watch how corporations do this. Microsoft and Apple, mortal enemies in the 1990s. Then Apple nearly collapses, and Microsoft invests to keep them alive, because monopoly would invite government intervention. Competitors, allies, competitors again, now frenemies in a complex ecosystem. No permanent enemies, no permanent friends, only permanent interests. Nations are even more ruthless. The United States armed the Mujahideen against the Soviets in Afghanistan, then fought many of those same fighters 20 years later. France and Britain, enemies for centuries, became allies when Germany emerged as a greater threat.
China and the US, ideological opposites, economic partners, strategic rivals, all simultaneously. The manipulation is convincing citizens that these relationships are about values, when they're purely about power calculations. This works in your life too. Your workplace team isn't family, though they use that language. They're temporary allies in a competitive environment. The moment your interests diverge, layoffs, promotions, credit for success, the alliance dissolves. Those who treat it as real family get devastated. Those who understand the game navigate it successfully. The deepest manipulation here is the morality play they overlay on strategic relationships. They call pragmatic realignment betrayal. They call strategic alliance selling out. They weaponize the language of loyalty and honor to make you predictable. And predictable is defeatable. Your enemies aren't who they told you to hate. Your allies aren't who they told you to trust. Both categories shift constantly based on the terrain, the stakes, the moment. The question isn't who's on your side. It's who's aligned with your interests right now and for how long. Who are you calling ally that's actually positioning against you?
Law 7. See beyond the immediate crisis. The short-term battle is always a distraction from the long-term war. In the depths of winter, 1812, Napoleon's Grande Armée retreats from Moscow. 600,000 men had marched into Russia. Fewer than 100 will return. It looks like total defeat. But here's what most miss. Napoleon is already thinking 3 moves ahead. He's not dwelling on the disaster. He's calculating how to rebuild, how to exploit the power vacuum his defeat will create, how to turn catastrophe into unexpected opportunity. He fails ultimately, but not because he couldn't see far. He fails because he couldn't balance the long vision with short-term sustainability. Machiavelli observed this in the rise and fall of Italian city-states. The ones that survived weren't necessarily the strongest or richest. They were the ones whose leaders could see beyond the immediate threat to the patterns underneath. Venice understood that controlling trade routes mattered more than controlling territory. Florence grasped that cultural influence could outlast military conquest. They played a longer game. This manipulation works by keeping you perpetually reactive. Crisis after crisis, emergency after emergency, fire after fire to put out. You're so busy dealing with the urgent that you never address the important. You're so focused on surviving today that you never build for tomorrow. And that's exactly how they want it, because people who are always reacting never have time to think strategically. Your news cycle is designed for this. 24 hours of crisis, scandal, outrage. Each one demands your immediate attention, your emotional response, your mental energy. By the time you've processed one crisis, 3 more have arrived. You're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, you're completely focused on the immediate. Meanwhile, the long-term structural changes, the ones that will actually reshape your world, happen quietly, unreported, unnoticed. Bismarck unified Germany not through a single brilliant move, but through a decades-long strategy of calculated wars, diplomatic maneuvers, and patient institution building. Each crisis he manufactured or exploited served a purpose 3 steps down the game tree. His opponents kept reacting to immediate provocations while he was building an empire. The manipulation is temporal. They control your time horizon. Keep it short. Today's crisis, this quarter's earnings, the next election cycle. And you'll never threaten long-term power structures. The people who truly rule think in generations. They plant trees whose shade they'll never enjoy. They build institutions designed to outlast them. They make moves whose consequences won't fully manifest for 20 years. You're trapped in the now. Your attention span has been deliberately shortened. Your planning horizon has been systematically reduced. You think in days while they think in decades. And that asymmetry is itself a form of power. The storm you're navigating right now, it's probably a distraction. The real change is happening in calm waters you're not even watching.
What vision extends beyond your current crisis?
The candle in Florence has burned to nothing. Dawn breaks over the Arno. Machiavelli seals his manuscript with wax, knowing it will outlive him, knowing it will be condemned and secretly studied by every prince who seeks to hold power in a world that pretends such knowledge is evil. You've journeyed through all 7 laws now: the illusion of choice, the power of strategic absence, the control of opposition, the currency of secrets, the architecture of legacy, the geometry of alliances, the vision beyond storms. These aren't historical curiosities. They're not academic theories. They're the operating system of power itself, running right now in every system you navigate. And here's the final manipulation, the one that encompasses all others. They've convinced you that knowing these things makes you cynical, dark, corrupt, that ignorance is somehow more virtuous than awareness, that being manipulated is more noble than understanding manipulation. This is perhaps their greatest trick, weaponizing morality itself to keep you blind. But you see now, you can't unsee it. The question is what you do with this sight. Some will close this video and try to forget. They'll retreat into comfortable narratives where good people win and bad people lose, where the world makes moral sense, where power follows virtue. That path leads to being moved across the board by players they never see. Others will become bitter, paralyzed by the knowledge that manipulation surrounds them. They'll see conspiracy everywhere, trust no one, and achieve nothing. Both paths are prisons. There's a third way, the path Machiavelli himself walked, not the monster they painted him as, but the realist who understood that to protect what matters, you must first understand how power actually works. You don't have to become a manipulator to refuse to be manipulated. You don't have to dominate to avoid being dominated. But you must see clearly. The world doesn't reward innocence, it devours it. But it respects those who understand its true nature and navigate it with open eyes. You can use this knowledge to build, to protect, to create something that matters without becoming a monster in the process. The power of sight is that you finally have choice. Real choice, not the illusion they gave you. So here's your threshold moment. Everything changes from here. You're now part of a different circle. Those who see what others miss, who understand what others deny, who navigate what others stumble through blind. Subscribe now. Join us in the secret circle of power. This isn't the end of your education, it's the beginning. There are deeper layers still, more sophisticated manipulations, more powerful principles that separate those who merely survive from those who truly shape their world. The choice, for once, is actually yours. Type "I see the game" in the comments if you're ready to go deeper. The circle is watching, and we recognize our own. The question Machiavelli asked 500 years ago echoes still. Will you be the one who sees, or the one who is seen through? Rise.